This is the 2025 Mazda CX-70. Mazda basically took a CX-90, ripped out the third row, gave it some fresh bumpers, changed the badge, and called it a day. And even though this is a smaller number, this is not an inferior SUV. In fact, if you don't need the third row, this is the better SUV. And after driving it for a week and taking it on some road trips, I find the CX-70 to be a pretty potent and capable midsize SUV filled with a lot of great features and tech. Now there's a few quirks here and there that might be annoying, but overall, I think you'll find this to be a pretty strong value proposition in a sea of other impressive midsize SUVs under $60,000. Starting off, let's begin with the gorgeous exterior. Now Mazda has pulled off the red color really well for the past few years, and this one I think is just as good. The paint here is called Soul Red Crystal Metallic, and it really plays off the soft contours of the CX-70. The front end has a unique front bumper that's more sporty looking than the CX-90. And check out this side intake here, that's pretty fake except for these openings here for the brake cooling. But this reminds me of the Jaguar F-Pace. I also like the dark gloss black finish around the grille, gloss black side view mirrors, and also the black window surrounds. And I also like the rear end of this thing. The bumper has been refreshed compared to the CX-90. And look at these LED taillights. They look pretty good and fairly large. The front and the rear looks pretty good. However, I can't say the same about the middle because this looks very flat. There's nothing interesting, no interesting character lines along the two door panels. But the positive I could say about this Turbo S Premium Plus model is that the wheel arches are color matched, so it gives it that more luxurious look. I also got a chance to review the CX-90 plug-in hybrid EV models, and you can see in that video how the exterior design changes when the wheel arches and some of the other trim pieces are in that black cladding material. Overall though, I think the Mazda CX-70 isn't a bad looking SUV, and there's a general trend for these SUVs to go more sharp and boxy. And in the end, they tend to all look somewhat the same, but this CX-70, this is a bit different, and that's a good thing. Inside, the CX-70 is very premium looking. I'll place this somewhere closer to Acura and Lexus territory rather than Honda or Toyota territory. The design is more simple and quiet, and I love how this dash here is one continuous element. This has a microfiber or Alcantara kind of feel to it. Hopefully this lasts for a very long time. And then down below you have your climate controls, and I love how it's all tightly clustered together, and this is all physical controls, which I love. And then up here you have this 12.3-inch touchscreen. This is your traditional tablet design, but I like how it's placed further away and more within your sight lines. And when you're driving, you can see how this tablet doesn't block any of the exterior lines of the car, so it doesn't block any elements of the road. As for the steering wheel, I really like this very simple classic design. The leathers are really nice, and the diameter I find to be a very comfortable size. Good 10 and 2 position, good 9 and 3 position as well. The 3-spoke design, I love all the physical buttons on here. And then there's also paddle shifters on the back to control the 7-speed automatic transmission. More on that a little bit later. The only thing I don't like about the front row interior is the center console. Now, I know they were going for simplicity here, but the center looks a bit unfinished. The gear shifter is a little strange with park left of reverse rather than forward of reverse. Now you'll get used to this very quickly, but in my opinion, a traditional Prindle or PRNDL configuration is probably best, or even a button style transmission that you'll find in a lot of modern cars. The rest of the center console has this nice wood grain pattern, but the center section here is just finished in this low glare black plastic. Now this blends fairly well in here, but if you choose a lighter finish, this stays the same black plastic finish and it just sticks out like a sore thumb. And I love the genius design that is the split armrest. If you're trying to get into the armrest, you don't have to bother the other passenger. But the only downside here is that this is such a small storage solution, you can't really fit much in here. When it comes to the second row, there is a lot to love here. First of all, the door swings out almost 90 degrees here, very wide opening. So if you're carrying a car seat, you could just comfortably walk straight in and install it. And check out the amount of rear legroom here. You got 39.4 inches of legroom, also 39.3 inches of headroom, lots of space. You even have that amount of headroom with the built-in power moonroof. And there's just a lot of extra features as well, like this built-in sunshade, and the outboard seats here are heated and automatic climate controls with 2 USB-C ports. And I love the amount of cargo space in this car. The CX-70 doesn't have the third row like the CX-90, so there's 39.6 cubic feet of space behind the second row. And you can automatically fold the second row down, and that reveals 75.3 cubic feet of space in this midsize SUV. That is a ton of space. When it comes to the straight line performance, the CX-70 is pretty good. 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque out of the 3.3 liter inline six turbocharged engine with a mild hybrid system. Now the MPG is still going to be like the 6-cylinder MPGs. With the turbo, you'll probably get the advertised 25 miles per gallon combined. That is if you behave and don't drive too fast. Now, the transmission can feel a little too conservative, even in sport mode. When you want to do that last minute acceleration, it can feel a little sluggish to downshift to the right gear. Now, you can preempt that by using the paddle shifters behind the steering wheel and just downshift yourself, at which point the shifting speeds of the transmission is pretty good. Now, the best part of the CX-70 is probably the handling and the steering. Both of them feel very confident for a large midsize SUV like this. It feels sure-footed around turns and also at speed. The all-wheel drive system also helps you transfer more torque to the ground, and it feels like you have a lot of grip all the time. Now, as for the steering wheel, this has pretty good feedback, and I love the amount of steering angle that you can get out of this. So it's fairly easy to maneuver around in a parking lot. And then the steering effort is also fairly light at lower speeds as well. Now, when I drove the CX-90, there seemed to be an issue with the steering rack, but it seems like it has been solved in this case. As for the ride quality, it could be a little bit better. Rough roads can really upset the entire chassis, and you quickly lose that premium feel of the car. The road noise can be a bit much at speeds as well, though fortunately, you could always turn up the volume to drown all of that out. Now, I do like all of the driving assistance features in this car. They're pretty excellent. There's adaptive cruise control and also lane keeping system. And both of these systems, when your sensors aren't blocked by anything and the weather is nice, they work like a human driver would behave, at least a good human driver. It's not jittery and it works smoothly and comfortably. The one quirk that's annoying here is the built-in touchscreen and how it's not usable while in motion. It does come with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and when you're stationary, you can use this as a traditional touchscreen. But while you're in motion, you have to rely on this infotainment dial. There is a workaround to that. There's a menu option where you could disable that, so this acts like a touchscreen while you're in motion, but it's only limited when you're using these wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto systems. When you're using the built-in native infotainment system, this is not a touchscreen anytime. I think for a little under $58,000, the CX-70 offers a lot of great value and a pretty good design. I think Mazda prioritized design as number one, handling as number two, power in number three, and then comfort at last place. I think this is what happens when you put an automotive enthusiast in charge of building a premium looking SUV. The CX-70 handles great and it has smooth inline six power, but sometimes it could feel like it's a sportier car, especially when the road gets a little bit more bumpy. Now, $58,000 is a lot of money, but take a look at the rest of the midsize SUV market, and especially at this higher end grade, you're going to be looking at spending this amount of money. And I also like that the CX-90 is still around the same price point compared to this somewhat fully loaded CX-70. It's around that under $60,000 range. But for the CX-90, obviously, you get the 3-row option. And the one that I drove also has that plug-in hybrid EV powertrain, which if you're trying to get into EVs but have that range anxiety, plug-in hybrids might be a good solution. Now, since you're still watching this video, check out my other video review of the CX-90 plug-in hybrid. That car has a lot of similarities to this, obviously, but it drives very differently because of that plug-in hybrid aspect. I want to thank you so much for watching all the way up to this point. My name is Hanson, and that has been the 2025 Mazda CX-70, and I'll see you in the next one.